So early on that Easter morning, the air in the garden probably smelled like damp earth and a finished dream. We all know that smell. It's the smell of a book being closed, a factory whistle blowing for the last time, or a heavy door being locked at the end of an era. When Mary Magdalene walks toward the tomb in the Bible, she wasn't looking for the future. She was looking for a corpse to preserve. She carried heavy spices because she wanted to rub them on a dead body to keep the past from rotting away. She was prepared to manage a memory, not to meet a movement. And if we're honest, we often treat our faith like a beautiful tomb. We bring our spices, our memories of the good old days, our favorite old traditions, and the way the pews used to be overflowing back in the day. And we try to preserve how it used to be. We look at empty houses on our streets, and the younger folks don't seem to know God anymore, and we think the story is over. We spend our energy trying to keep a memory alive instead of looking for a living hope. But transformation starts when we stop looking for a dead body to preserve and start looking for a living king to follow. See, Jesus did not come back to open a museum. He came back to get his hands back in the dirt of our very lives. When he said her name, Mary, the graveyard of her mind just collapsed. She didn't see a gardener anymore. She saw a future that was breathing. And we ask God to do it again. We have to be real about the world outside our doors. When the Bible warns us about difficult times, it's not just talking about global events in some distant land. It's talking about the single mom who's working 2 shifts and still staring at the kitchen table, wondering if she has enough to pay the electric bill. It's the dad who's trying to be both parents at once, exhausted and wondering if anybody sees the quiet sacrifice that he's making just to keep his kids fed and safe. It's the senior who has to go to a department store, at a Walmart, to sit in the air conditioning in the mid of summer just to keep warm and alive, or keep cool and alive. The Bible warns us about having a form of godliness, but denying its power. Plainly speaking, you can have a beautiful farmhouse, fresh coat of white paint on the outside, the form of a home. But if the heater's broken, if the pipes are frozen, it does not have the power to keep you alive. If our form of church never leaves this building to help a neighbor who is drowning in the cold, we are missing the power. Easter is the day that God broke the form. Broke the form of the grave to let the power of love out into the streets where people are actually living. And we keep asking God to do it again. Think about the old houses in our communities. Some of them have those big, those big hand-cut foundation stones. We've got one in the corner over here. They've been there for 100 years in some of the houses. They hold up the roof. And our church family, you are those stones. You're the root system where prayers have held this community together through recessions, through rains, through storms, through a lot. But the foundation exists to hold up a living home, not just a monument. We call this a blended ecology, a healthy orchard where the old roots and the new branches grow together. We plant seeds for trees that our great-great-grandchildren will sit under. This isn't about preparing to be the church. It's about realizing that whenever we gather in a kitchen or a coffee shop or a diner or a softball field and speak of hope, That is the church. It counts just as much as what happens here in the sanctuary. When we go to the laundromat, the park, or the diner, we're reclaiming our Methodist DNA. John Wesley didn't wait in a cathedral. He went out to the fields because that's where the people were. Here's the shift. We're not going out to those places to bring God to people. We go because God is already there. Often God's clearest truth is found in the margins, among the lonely, the struggling, the forgotten. We go to learn from them, not just to teach them. I don't go to the canal place and walk around and interact with people because I have all the answers. I go because I need the person who's been through the fire of addiction to teach me what resurrection actually looks like in the real world. We aren't just serving the margins. We're letting the margins lead us back to Jesus. And we need to ask God to do it again. The radical nature of the resurrection is that the very first person that Jesus took into paradise with him was a thief, a man the world had written off. If the kingdom begins with a thief, then our church must offer belonging before behaving. This is for the parent who feels judged because their family doesn't look like the perfect picture in a book. You don't need a perfect home to be a perfect fit for the kingdom. This proves that no life is too rotted to become the fertilizer for a new start. No one is too far gone. And we ask God to do it again. See, the world is full of 1 second people. 1 second people who, as soon as you see them, as soon as you meet them, that they will judge you in an instant. But people who are hurting, they need 3 seconds of silence. When we give those 3 seconds, we're practicing double listening. Listening to God and the neighbor at the same time. When we give those 3 seconds, we aren't just being polite. We're giving people the space to be imperfect. We're giving them the freedom to try and fail without being judged. The move changes us from gatekeepers who decide who's in or who's out, and to pathfinders. Pathfinders who help people find their way home. And transformation happens when we offer a safe space to fail and still be loved. Sometimes we're afraid to try new things. I was talking with a pastor just this week, and we're talking about trying new expressions of faith in church. And I was telling her, I said, just realize we're going to fail miserably the first time we do it. But that's going to be fertilizer for the future. Sometimes we're afraid to try new things because we might look silly. It might be different. We might never have done it before. But in a garden that leaves, that die and rot become the fertilizer that helps next year's flowers grow. In God's eyes, failure is fertilizer. We encourage wild card ministries like the one I talked about with that pastor. If a prayer group or a community gathering doesn't take off, it's just nutrients for the next thing God is doing. We have permission to fail because Jesus has already won the big battle. Our job is not to be perfect. It's just to be present and curious about what God is growing next in the soil. In the Bible, God, our God, is the specialist of the again. He once stood in a valley of dry, dusty bones. Bones that looked like they'd been dead for hundreds of years. And he breathed life back into them until they stood up as a living army again. He brought his people home from exile again. He brought rain to the dry dirt again. And on that third day, he brought Jesus out of the tomb again. We need to be looking far into the future. 7 generations far. Trusting that same breath. We're doing this so that a child growing up today will have a place of hope 40, 50, 60 years from now. We're building a foundation so that the next generation doesn't have to leave these communities just to find love. Like the prophet Ezekiel, we're looking at the dry bones of our quiet streets and our empty buildings, and we're saying, live again. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be like Mary and say, I have seen the Lord. Transformation is choice. We have to choose to stop being gatekeepers of an institution and start being pathfinders for our movement. In our communities, those chasms have names. They look like a neighbor working 80 hours a week, exhausted, missing their kids' ball games, trading their health just to keep a roof overhead, because the slow train of poverty makes the math of life fail to add up. Holy action, or rather I like to say holy mischief, means asking why a parent must work 80 hours just to survive in the first place. It means seeking justice, not just offering a handout. This is where we stop doing for people and start standing with them. Easter power is the only thing stronger than that exhaustion. It's the power to say that the way things are is not the way things have to be. But remember this, we're not just a people of the struggle. We are the people of the surprise. The resurrection isn't just a serious historical event. It's a wild, unadulterated joy. It's the laughter that comes when you realize the worst thing is no longer the last thing. The world expects us to be as exhausted as everybody else. But the third day gives us a holy spark. It means that when we sit at that diner or walk the canal or go to the library or go to the ball fields or go to the tattoo parlors or the laundromats, we aren't just carrying a burden. We're carrying a secret. The secret is that life is won. The secret is that the grave is empty. The party is started. Let your life be so full of that third day surprise that people stop and ask you where that light is coming from. Live your life as if the world is your sanctuary, because it is. Don't go looking for the living among the dead. Don't spend your holy energy grieving over the way things used to be or polishing the stones of a finished era. We honor the foundations of our ancestors, but we do not live in their graveyard. We are the people of the again. And our God is a specialist in resurrection. So ask yourself if you can feel the Spirit, the breath of the Spirit moving across our communities. God is standing in the valley of our dry bones. In our row houses, our laundromats, our schools, our communities. And He is speaking life where the world has spoken death. From the single mother's kitchen to the dinner booth, the gardener's already out there calling your names. He's calling you to march into the next 7 generations with a holy spark and a third day joy. So go forth now as a Galilee presence. Stand in the gap. Practice the silence. And trust the transformation. And keep asking God to do it again. Let's bow our heads.